Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to call the City of Homestead Special Call Council meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. And as it's a pretty special day in the calendar of this country, the second Tuesday of November, let's all rise for the pledge, and Councilman Fletcher will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Will you please join me in the pledge to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Avila. Councilwoman Faircloth Staggers. Councilman Ross. Councilman Fletcher.
Here.
Councilwoman Bailey. Vice Mayor Guzman.
Here.
Mayor Losner.
Here. All right, thank you. All right, tab 1, our first item is car number 3711, issuance of a note to secure a loan from the FMPA in an amount not to exceed $6,500,000. Mr. Pearl?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Tab 1 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, authorizing the issuance of a note in an amount not to exceed $6.5 million to secure a loan from the Florida Municipal Power Agency for the purpose of financing a portion of the cost of the ring bus expansion at Renaissance Electrical Substation and to provide funding for contract labor to supplement the internal labor workforce for labor required to complete the FEMA storm hardening Section 406 project, providing for security of the note, approving and authorizing the execution and delivery of a loan agreement, note, and such other documents as may be necessary in connection with the loan, providing for severability, providing for repealer, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. It appears they're all related. Would it be advisable just to have one global conversation about each of the 4 items?
Mayor, as I read the first item, I think it will cover the 3 following items. And I think that should be sufficient. Yeah. If anything else, I'll add additional explanations.
Thank you.
So do you want me to read the other titles in?
Let's go ahead and read the
now,
titles, and we'll
and
have
then
the
you can
global
take your
conversation.
votes?
Sure.
Tab 2 is the first reading of an ordinance. It's an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending the budget for the Electric Utility Fund and the Electric Utility Bond Debt Service Fund for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2022 and ending September 30th, 2023 by increasing the total budgeted revenues and expenditures by $6,755,000, providing for severability and an effective date. Tab 3 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving the award of a design-build contract to construct the Renaissance Electrical Substation ring bus expansion to Burns and McConnell Engineering Company, Inc., pursuant to RFP 2022-14, authorizing the city manager to execute the contract and issue a notice to proceed for the pre-construction services phase, authorizing the city manager under a price ceiling condition and other conditions stated herein to execute a guaranteed maximum price amendment for the construction phase and issue a notice to proceed therefore, providing for an effective date. And Tab 4 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving the utilization of an agreement between the Florida Municipal Power Agency and the following awarded companies, Irby Construction Company and Pike Electric LLC, for electric utility transmission and distribution and maintenance services, recognizing competitive bidding exemption pursuant to City Code Section 2-411.1A5, providing for implementation and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. You ready?
Mayor, Councilwoman Faircloth just let me know she won't be able to call in. So just letting you all know.
Thank you.
So, okay. Car 3711. Staff is recommending to finance a portion of the cost of the ring bus expansion at the Renaissance Substation, CIP 2295, as bid proposals have come in much higher than anticipated to provide funding for the contract crews to supplement the internal labor working force for the FEMA storm hardening 406 project by entering into tax-exempt loan through the Florida Municipal Agency's FMPA pool loan program. Matt kind of spoke to this in the reading of the resolutions. So $4.5 million of this will go to the Renaissance substation to finish the tie-in with FP&L. And then the $2 million remaining will go to help us out, finish putting in the storm hardening poles in the southwest part of town for the FEMA grant that we received a few years back, which was like $2.2 million. So staff recommends that mayor and council, approve the attached resolution authorizing the issuance of a note in the amount not to exceed $6.5 million to secure a loan from the FMPA for the purpose of financing the ring bus expansion at the Renaissance substation and to finance the contract-day labor needed to complete the FEMA storm hardening mitigation program. That's it.
All right, council? Questions? Councilman Fletcher?
Yeah, quickly, just, you stated that the prices came in significantly higher than what we thought they were going to be. Was there a percentage that, the overage of what we thought it was going to be? Just trying to see how this relates to current costs, is all.
Good afternoon. Yes, Councilman Fletcher, we had anticipated about $1.5 million for this project, and it's coming in $4 and $4.5 million, so significantly higher than what we anticipated. Some of that is due to price increases in materials. Materials have gone up by about 70% since we did the estimate. We also did not anticipate the fill costing what fill actually cost. Our substation expert missed that when he made the estimate. So those are some of the two significant reasons why it's so much higher.
Okay, so understanding the fill especially, I've had to deal with that in particular. Going forward in other hardening phases as we move forward, let's just make sure we're getting the correct bids out there and we're getting those from the right people. Again, I know it's time to take advantage of some people because there are limited people who do this type of work. So let's just kind of keep an eye on that if we can. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Avila?
Is this interest rate locked in?
Carlos?
Yeah, I know the Feds just had their meeting and they raised the Fed rate by 75 basis points, but they just called me before this meeting and we got it locked in at 4.6. So I know the agenda says 4.5, but we're getting it at 4.6. Good question.
Thank you. How much more are we expecting to have to borrow to complete the phases in total, just out of curiosity?
This will complete the project. We won't need to borrow any.
This
additional.
particular Renaissance substation project,
Yeah.
and as well as the storm hardening FEMA grant project.
Okay, thank you. I'll rest there.
Thank you. Any further from council? Vice Mayor?
Thank you. I wanted to ask if the city had any alternative pools of funds that they can pull from rather than going out for a loan.
Vice Mayor, we could try to do internal loans from the general fund, but in this case, for the electric utility, it makes more sense to actually borrow from a bank because they have the ability with their revenues to just pledge electric utility revenue. So it makes sense in this case to do an external bank loan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any further? Question. What are the implications of not doing the ring bus expansion?
Well, that's a Barbara question, but then we wouldn't have the secondary tie-in to FPNL. If something would have happened to that primary tie-in, then we might not be able to supply the appropriate power to our residents.
Correct, yes. If we lose one piece of equipment at the Lucy substation where we're tied to FPL, if we lose that, we lose that whole interconnection to the grid. So this will help us to have redundancy.
Fair enough, but then we're also looking at probably a comparable amount or more for the Avocado substation that's
the Donnie Avocado sub, we've already secured the funds for that. That one, we secured $5 million. And we're moving forward with procurement, getting the bid out on the street on that in short order here.
All right, so, and I understand that all of the debt service, all this is repayable out of utility revenues. When fully drawn, what is the impact? What are our annual P&I payments at full disbursement?
850?
This is a 10-year loan, correct?
It is a 10-year loan.
Well, if it's 850 for 10 years, it's about 8,500, right?
I don't want to say a number that's
Okay.
not.
Why don't, can we do this, Mayor? Can we move forward while Carlos gets the information?
Sure, and look, it's not going to make any difference on my vote. I just was curious, but I think it raises the bigger issue for me is, I don't know, let's have a flow chart of what loans are out there and what our annual impact is. I mean, we've recently secured the financing for the Donnie Avocado Station. Now we've got this, kind of put it in perspective with how we've impacted those revenues and what our long-term obligations are. It's always a helpful refresher. But, that's fine, so we can go forward. All right, so on this item, are there any further questions? Is there any public comment on this item? We'll close the public hearing. This item is moved for approval by Councilwoman Avila, seconded by Councilman Fletcher. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Bailey, Councilman Roth, Councilman Fletcher,
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila, Vice Mayor Guzman,
Yes.
Mayor Losner,
Yes.
the motion carries.
Thank you. Tab, what's it, pardon? No, one, we have to do it, resolution by resolution. We are now on tab 2, which is car number 3715, which is a budget amendment to provide for the item we just approved. So real quick, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience or online? Close the public hearing, and I'll ask for a motion to approve tab 2. Moved by Councilwoman Avila, seconded by Councilman Fletcher. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Fletcher,
Yes.
Councilman Roth, Councilwoman Bailey, Councilwoman Avila, Vice Mayor Guzman,
Yes.
Mayor Losner,
Yes.
the motion carries.
And your next is tab 3, car number 3674, which is an award of RFP 2022 design build services for the Renaissance Substation Ring Bus Expansion. Any public comment? Close the public hearing. Question, Vice Mayor.
To Ms. Quinones, when our electric purchase power contracts that are due to expire, and we have this loan, would we at any point have to raise rates to our customers to service this loan?
Well, what I can tell you, Vice Mayor, is that we're covered for this year. We don't have to raise any rates associated with the loan. And for the next budget year, we'll have to assess at that point. I could give you my thoughts, but I'd prefer to, have our assessment for the next budget year, and then we could tell you with certainty. My gut instinct is no, but we would have to assess it on a year-by-year basis and, look at expenditures and revenues.
So when is the first purchase power agreement set to expire, the ones that we already have in place? Like 7 years or?
Yeah, I know we've got one that expires the end of 2029. We recently extended a couple of purchase power agreements. I think the first one that expires is probably an agreement we have with FMPA. And Billy, do you know when that one expires? 25? Okay, so probably in 2025, we lose 15 megawatts of power that we've got through purchase power agreements with FMPA.
So the only adjustments that you make with, in terms of rates is the increase or decrease of fuel costs?
Correct. Those are the only changes that have been made since I've been here, starting in 2009.
Okay. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Anything further from council? We have a motion to approve. Moved by Councilman Avila, second by Councilman Fletcher. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Ross? Yes. Councilwoman Bailey? Councilwoman Avila? Yes. Councilman Fletcher?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Guzman?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carried.
And then finally, tab 4. Did you read that resolution, Mr. Pearl? Okay. R number 3708, the contractor services as needed. Is there any public comment? We'll close the public hearing. Any final questions for council? Vice Mayor Guzman.
I'd like finance to tell us what that 10-year term would be in terms of payments, if you were able to find it.
And again, what I'm looking at is based on the 4.5. They just called me right before the meeting with the 4.6. But over the 10 years, you're basically paying $8.2 million back. That's the total amount with principal and interest that you'd be paying.
Thank you, sir.
Any further?
No, sir.
All right. All right. Did we have a motion? We moved and seconded already, didn't we? Yeah. Councilwoman, did you move that one? Okay, I thought so, and Councilman Fletcher seconded. So let's have a roll call on tab 4.
Councilman Fletcher?
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila? Councilwoman Bailey? Councilman Ross? Vice Mayor Guzman?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
That concludes the business on the printed agenda. Mr. Manager, is there anything further for the special call?
No, sir.
Mr. Attorney? Have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councilwoman Bailey, seconded by Vice Mayor. All in favor? All right, we will adjourn the CRA meeting momentarily. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to call the City of Homestead Community Redevelopment Agency Board meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, November 8th, 2022, and it is now 5:30 p.m. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Board Member Bailey? Here. Board Member Fletcher?
Here.
Board Member Avila? Here. Board Member Ross? Here. Vice Chairman Guzman?
Here.
Chairman Losner?
Here. Madam Director, are there any deletions or deferrals tonight?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. All right, we have before us the minutes of the meeting of September 6, 2022 for approval. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of September 6? Moved by Vice Chair Guzman, seconded by Board Member Avila. All in favor? Any opposed? New business, tab 2, car number 3704, property purchase, 437 Southwest 2nd Avenue and 441 Southwest 2nd Avenue. Mr. Pearl?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Tab number 2 is a resolution of the Board of the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Homestead, Florida, approving an as-is residential contract for sale and purchase, authorizing execution of the as-is residential contract for sale and purchase by the city manager, authorizing the CRA executive director and city attorney to take all action necessary to implement the sale and to finalize and sign all documents, providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Madam Director?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On July 27, 2022, Mayor and Mayor and council approve the allocation of $6 million in American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds towards the Community Redevelopment Agency's Triangle property. The Triangle project is located at Southwest 4th Street and Railroad Avenue, which is the gateway to the Southwest neighborhood. As a reminder, the project will be a mixed-income, mixed-use, transit-oriented development intended to catalyze the redevelopment in the neighborhood while creating synergy with the revitalization of downtown. The Triangle project consists of 2 sites. One site is just over 46,000 square feet, and then the second site is 19,590 square feet. The CRA has an opportunity to expand the footprint of Site 1 by adding an additional 8,500 square feet with the purchase of 2 properties located at 437 Southwest 2nd Ave and 441 Southwest 2nd Ave. Staff recommends the CRA Board approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement for the purchase of real property at 437 Southwest 2nd Avenue and 441 Southwest 2nd Avenue in the amount of $600,000 from Christ LLC.
Thank you. Board members, any initial questions? None? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I know that we were distributed some of these documents, so I don't know if this is for just public comment or if we're all going to have a conversation about how it all fits into, like, is there intent to work with private partners on this project, or is this just the Triangle property vision and the City of Homestead's plan?
I think that, well, my thought is that, once council got through its initial questions as to this transaction, we can have public comments that will dovetail into the handout. So with respect to the proposed contract, are there any questions or comments at this point without going over into the handout? Board Member Bailey.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a quick question. I was looking at the assessed and the market values. So it's the market value for 437 is 46,800 about, and then the other one is 264,000.
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
That's a county printout.
Right. So
The county,
The property appraiser.
the property that's the property appraisal. We had the project appraised, an official appraisal done on the property, and it appraised at $550,000.
Perfect. That's what I was just curious about, because it was really way under on the county's one, so I wanted to double check that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Vice Chair.
On this map, and I'm asking this question to see how it's in conjunction with these 2 new properties, but E and 2F, that's part of the initial agreement we were going to acquire, that's in blue? E and 2F, no?
I'm sorry, Vice Chair, I have no idea what you're referring to.
Councilman, we don't have a copy of that.
Okay.
That, I believe Mr. Bass brought that. That's not part of the city's council agenda.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's Mr. Bass's handout. I believe that the property marked as A is the contract under consideration here.
Yeah.
This is the fourplex only.
What I'm referring to,
Is the church. It's
It-
the church property.
it was a multifamily and the church
Correct.
property. That's already being worked on with our consultant, correct, or no?
Yes. If you're referring to the multifamily that's next to the fourplex, which we are asking your permission to purchase tonight, as well as the church that's next to the multifamily, yes, we have a consultant that is currently working on trying to get those owners to agree to sell.
And Vice Mayor, those were the properties that were identified when we first brought the item to council, getting the approval to earmark $6 million of the ARPA monies for the acquisition.
Can you remind me if that acquisition went through, or is it already?
This is
Under-
the first one. This is the first of the 3 buildings that we're acquiring.
Okay. Got it.
Let me jump in though, but I think, to your point, on this map, the property, which is the larger apartment complex, delineated, I guess, as 2F, has recently sold to a private party since we allocate. So, well, let me ask you this then. So,
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So, if we go ahead and close on this fourplex and are not successful in acquiring the others, and when I say the others, I mean the recently acquired larger apartment complex and the church building on the corner, where does that leave us?
It leaves us back to where we were. We initially have 3 different prospective plans for this site. So if we do not acquire any other property, we could build on what we currently have. If we get the fourplex, that's going to expand the footprint of the property, which will, make it a much nicer, a project that'll be more attractive to developers. We can do that without the church, without the multifamily as well.
And Mayor, something to keep in mind, well, I'm sorry, Mayor, I didn't mean
No,
to
go ahead.
interrupt you. Something to keep, this particular purchase opens up the door for us to give us access to another city-owned property, which is just south of the Triangle property, expanding the footprint of the development, and it even opens up a pathway to several properties we have to the west as well, which the county is kind of reaching out to us to acquire those properties. So literally, by this single purchase, we're expanding southward and westward on this development project. So it's a critical piece of property to acquire.
And we can make
Vice
that,
Chair.
and if I may, we can make that expansion without the church and without the multifamily.
If this property is not acquired, is the intent on that road to close it? To close, the line is zigzagged on the properties that we are considering. But if we do, what road is that right there?
That's Second Ave, Southwest Second Ave.
Right across the street from that fourplex, would that road be now available for development?
If we get this purchase, and then we're able to close Southwest Fifth, we could close Southwest Fifth and then connect the smaller triangle, as Jerry just mentioned. There's a smaller triangle there that we own. We would be able to connect that to this larger project. So that is the vision, is that we would close Fifth.
Got it.
And Vice Mayor, I can ask Yaniel, maybe he could go on Google Earth and we could bring up the image if you like. If not, we could just keep moving
No,
forward.
it makes sense, because if you don't acquire the property, then it puts a wrench in closing the loop.
Correct.
I was going to ask if we could have some kind of visual from CRA to show us.
Yep,
Thank you.
just give us a minute and we'll take care of that.
And while we're doing that, though, is the vision then to assemble or package up the properties that we're acquiring together with that which we already own and do, for lack of a better expression, an RFP to put it out there for someone to come in and build a project to our parameters?
That's a great expression. Yes, our intent is to do an RFP for this project so that we can get a development partner.
All right. Again, while we're doing this, my concern has always been with relocation. The city has really gotten hung out to dry financially and spent more than we ever imagined. Has there been any analysis done on what our exposure could be for the relocation for this fourplex, or do we have an opportunity to determine that during the due diligence period so that if it is too egregious, we can potentially bail out?
Yes, Richard Glass is here, and he is with Glass Land Acquisition. He's the one that's been working with us to acquire the property and would be the one that would assist us with the relocation. So he'd be more than happy to answer your question regarding relocations.
Let's talk about relocation.
Okay. When we engage in negotiations with property owners, and in this case is a willing seller program, we have to be very, very cautious with contacting tenants at that time, because some don't understand and they don't cooperate with the program because they don't understand the program. The property owner likewise is afraid that if the deal doesn't go through, his tenants are now gone for whatever reason, fear or otherwise, so he's losing income. So you walk a fine line. So in the policies and procedures that we're using, since it's a willing seller program, we do not engage in discussions with the tenants until the contract is approved. Then we must engage within 14 days of the signature and effective date of that contract. We know that there are 4 families there. We don't know exactly how many people are in those families. We know that there are small children in those families. And that's as much as I can give you because you can't engage them yet.
But you know what the square footage and the bedroom and bathroom configuration is for each of these 4 units. Doesn't that give you the ability to at least give us some clarity, some idea as to what our worst case scenario relocation exposure is?
That's also difficult because if we go in, it's a 2-bedroom unit and there are 4 children and adult male and adult female, just making up a scenario here, they cannot, under the federal programs, go back into a 2-bedroom unit. Then you have to, are they girls? Are they little girls? Are they little boys? Are they under 10? Are they over 10? Because if they're under 10, they can go in the same room if it's okay with the parents. So it's multi-level, and I wish that I could give you a real answer to the question, but until we meet with them, we don't know.
So just,
I know it's great, but the regulations are very, very specific as to when you can contact and the interview process.
okay. So your answer is no, we don't really have any idea what kind of exposure we're looking at. But just for sake of argument, we are obligated for up to a 2-year period to pay the difference in the amount of the rent that that family is paying now and what a legal size unit would be for them to move into because we're doing something with this project. You know, if they're paying $500 a month now and it's $2,200 for the appropriate bedroom mix, we're on the hook for that one family for $1,700 a month difference for 24 months.
42 months.
42 months.
Yes, sir.
Plus moving expenses and some other incidentals. So, you know, that could exceed the purchase price of this entire property for 4
Respectfully,
units.
Mayor, I don't think so, but I won't argue with you.
Okay.
It wouldn't be prudent.
So, is there any way, let's say for sake of argument that if we close on this, so we do an assemblage, then we do an RFP, and it takes months to get that done. If we allow them to stay there, do we get any credit against that 42 months that they're not having to move?
The plan is, once you become the owner, the CRA becomes the owner, we enter into a lease with the tenants that are there now, and you collect that income.
But that's not what I asked.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I asked, is there any way to mitigate our exposure? Let's, kind of hypothetically, that our 42-month clock starts running the month of closing. And if we allow them to stay there for 18 months at the same rent, does that reduce the 42-month exposure, or do they get 18 months as our tenant and then 42 months into the future for mitigation?
Does not mitigate anything. They get the 42 months under the federal regulations.
Now, let me ask you this. There is an addendum in the contract that talks about the buyer will comply with all federal relocation. Well, I think that's kind of a throwaway clause because implicit in federal law as a municipal buyer, we are obligated to do that relocation with or without that provision in there. But here's my point. Now, I'll ask you this. The contract is assignable. Let's say we had someone show up and say, I've bought up all the privately owned property around this. We'd like to strike a deal with you, City of Homestead, to buy up your lots, and we'd like to take an assignment of contract for this fourplex. If that provision were not on the face of the contract, is our assignee still obligated to do relocation?
I would answer yes.
So once it's under contract to a municipal entity, that liability would be passed on to an assignee.
When you're using federal funds for purchase, that's correct.
No. I'm saying we assign the contract. We never close on it.
That's a good question.
I thought so.
Yes.
That's why I ask it.
Well, let's think it out for a second here. We've approached the seller, the property owner, as CRA, using federal funds, and they know that federal funds are being used. If you back off from that scenario, I think there would be a measure of criticism. I can't say that you can't assign it because that's a legal question.
They've executed an assignable contract. It's what I do for a living. The contract is assignable. So if we assigned it to someone, for a private entity, for whatever reason, does that mitigation obligation follow? I mean, I would assert that it does now because we've put it on the face of the contract, but if it were not there, would that obligation follow?
Mayor, are you asking for this instance or future instances?
I'm talking about this instance.
Okay.
Because it's already there. It's an assignable contract, but has an additional term that says buyer. So our buyer is responsible for that relocation obligation. Our assignee then would be bound by that. So that term, unless, because it's under municipal contract, that pollutes the well, that additional term seems to be a problem in an assignable contract.
If you assigned it,
It's an additional term. No, in the body of the contract, I think, under additional terms, yeah.
I think if you assigned it before there were any expenditure of federal funds, you would be okay, subject to criticism, subject to whatever you want to call it, but I don't see why you cannot
What's the
assign.
basis of your concern of the criticism?
I've represented to this property owner, and I've represented to others that I am contacting, that this is for CRA being purchased under federal funds. And so I could be silent about it and not say anything, and it's assigned. But, transparency is in question then.
But we're already paying over appraised value, and they have accepted that dollar amount.
Well,
As that seller, do they really care who pays them that amount?
The seller cares about the tenant. I can tell you in the negotiations with the seller, he had told the CRA prior to me being involved that he wanted $650,000. When he came to my office, he wanted $650,000. We talked, he went to 620, we talked, he went to, not to minimize the negotiations, he went to 610, and finally he went to 600. So he wanted more, and he is concerned about his tenants.
Well, certainly the city has the liability, the federal liability for protecting his tenants, and any assignment by the city could build in some level of protection. But when we start talking about doing the math for 42 months for relocation, that's, in my mind, look, I'll dredge up ancient history, but I'll explain it to you in 3 words: shotgun property. The city took it in the shorts, paying relocation rents for years, starting in 2006. I just have a fundamental problem with us getting involved where I think the private market should be involved. I'm not going to support this. I think we should walk away, let the private world do what it does, and let them come to us and do a proposal to include the lots we own now in their project. You know, and if they have to pay more for this one, so be it. Okay, so I think that Google Earth is up now. I think you had requested the map.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
May I, before we proceed, the county land that they gave us, we have deed restrictions on those land, on that land. We can't sell it. We can't convey it. We have to maintain ownership. The CRA has to maintain ownership of that land. So that's just one of the deed restrictions that came along with that.
Okay, but a few minutes ago, you told me we were going to put it out on an RFP
Yes.
for a private builder to do a project.
Yes, and the plan is that we would do a long-term ground lease.
Okay. So what I described a few moments ago doesn't preclude that.
So anyone that would want to take on this project, they also have to understand all the other restrictions and be in agreement to uphold the restrictions that are in that deed. So it's not just a simple, we can give this land away and someone can develop the project. I'm not quite clear, and maybe it would help me to understand, why would we want to assign our purchase contract to another developer?
Because I believe the private world can do it faster, better, and cheaper than any government entity can. That's why.
That's why we're doing the RFP, so we can have the private world develop it. And I mean, so I'm.
But if the private world buys this privately owned parcel and is not faced with the level of mitigation costs that we are, it has that ability to put those dollars back into a much better project rather than go pay another landlord, in this day and age, outrageous rent.
So the private developer, he or she would not relocate those individuals?
That's between them and their tenants and the seller.
As a city, I would be concerned that we're going to look bad if these folk are put out with no place to go, with no assistance to go anywhere, and everyone knows that it's for a project that's for the city, whether the city is doing it or not. I don't think, I would be concerned about that.
But we could build those protections into an assignment that are not as egregious as the 42-month protection. And where would those 4 families be if the private world had gotten this property under contract before we did?
Thank God they didn't.
Well, that's your opinion. Let me digress. A couple of months ago, I asked for a bunch of information to be put together so that we could have a big discussion about the entire vision of the CRA and the Southwest neighborhood. And we have yet to have that. And this just seems like we're piecemealing without the bigger picture in front of us on this one.
Of course.
Vice Chair.
What I'm understanding from this conversation is, in terms of exposure funds, he says 42 months, certain rents are going to end up being a certain amount. I wanted to ask Councilman Roth, when, let's say, for example, the Kai's company does a relocation, is it similar to what we are talking about here? And it's not, because we're a city, a government agency that creates or that puts in place all of these terms, all of these obligations. Can you just tell us quickly how it is with relocation companies, if you have any idea?
Well, relocation is totally different than what we're talking about, because that's usually a corporate decision. and they're going to pay X amount of dollars, and that's also with military personnel. They'll pay them to relocate from Arizona to South Florida. That's just part of that program. The problem we have here is this money is federally stamped money, right? So, and I don't understand the process either, and I don't think the mayor's question was answered either when it came to if we buy this property and we allow them to stay for 24 months, how much longer do we have to afford them?
He did answer, 42.
Oh, so it's 42 from the time that we say you have to go?
42 months from the day that they leave the unit.
No good deed goes unpunished is what that translates to.
Yeah, so I appreciate the input, but these are two different scenarios in total. I mean, the private sector definitely has an advantage when it comes to, call it relocating or removing, people from one dwelling to another. In this case, if a developer bought this land and said, okay, I'm not going to build for 2 more years, but I want to increase their rent by 50% to market, they could do that by giving them a 60-day notice under the new county law, or they could choose to leave with no penalties to the property owner. But that's in a private sector. That's not in a governmental purchase. That's using federal funds. So under the federal program, they're asking up here, can we increase the rent on those tenants?
I think once we own the property, as long as it's a market rent, I don't see a problem with increasing the rent. You have the right to make market rent as a governmental agency or as a private individual or company.
But let's be honest with ourselves up here right now. We're not looking to keep tenants there long term. We're looking to rehabilitate that property, bring in whatever development comes in, but we would still have to foot the bill for 4 units, is it? 4 families. And it's based on the current occupancy. So if they've got 2 families living in 1 unit, how does that work?
Then it would be 2 relocations. We haven't interviewed them yet. There is no indication that that is what's happening there.
So potentially, if you have 2 families in 1 unit and you've got to move them out and you got to pay that rent for 42 months, simple math is going to tell you that 4 years times 12,000, if the rent's $1,000 a month, which you're not going to find anything in Homestead for $12,000 a year. You're not going to find that. It adds, your calculations might be close to correct if we go to market, because if a unit's going to be $12,000 for a year times 4, that's $48,000 for 1 unit. And we do that 4 times.
Sorry, there's a differential, what they're paying now versus.
So we have to pay the difference from what they're paying now to what they're.
Correct, so it's not
Okay.
0 to a
Do we know
number.
what they're paying today?
I think it's somewhere short of between 500 and 1,000. I did not, frankly, ask that question because he was concerned, what's going to happen to these people.
Yeah, not to beat it down any further, but these are 2-bedroom units, 1-bedroom units. We don't know.
2-bedroom
They're
units.
2-bedroom units.
And again, our exposure depends upon how many children or families are in that 2-bedroom. You may have enough kids in 1 unit here that require us to go rent a 3.
No, trust me, I'm hearing that and seeing that. But the least expensive 2-bedroom unit in the city right now, at market rate, is like $1,700 a month. So you're talking about $1,200.
Well, there is an opportunity if they qualify to get them into Section 8 housing, which is not a problem at all under the federal regulations.
Does that
So-
alleviate the city's responsibility after that if they go to a
It
federal
doesn't
program?
alleviate it, but it certainly reduces the amount rather than a market rent. It's a Section 8 rent, which is, I guess I can use the word controlled. That may be the wrong word under Section 8.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of weird things.
A lot of unknowns.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. Vice
Mr. Glass,
Chair.
I remember seeing you here a few months ago,
Correct.
And we went into an agreement with your firm.
Correct.
If we don't proceed with these relocation services, then do you have a separate job description of acquisition that does not include relocation, or it's all bundled into the agreement?
It's a scope of services that includes acquisition on one part of it and relocation on the other, and then other administrative type services in there also, yes.
So every property that we acquire, you are going to start the relocation process?
Correct.
So if we're having this conversation here where I see there are some discrepancies and maybe people are not feeling so great about it, where does that leave us with you? If, you know what I mean? If you guys are having a hard time getting through the relocation process because it gives us too much exposure, then it kind of questions what our relationship is with Mr. Glass. So I don't really know how to move forward if we don't get past this.
Mr. Chair, may I? So when we brought Mr. Glass before you all, we wanted to enter into this agreement with him because we had presented to you all that we wanted to try to purchase properties that would have tenants in them, and we wanted to make sure that we were in compliance with the Federal Relocation Act. Staff was not experts in that, so we brought him aboard for that purpose. During that time, we presented the vision for the Triangle Project to you all, the small vision and then the big vision, the one that included purchasing all the parcels that were around it and the one if we couldn't purchase any parcels. So this was not piecemeal that's being brought to you today, the Triangle. We had discussions about it and presented it, showed you potential renderings of what it could possibly look like, shared with you how we were going to go about this. You all approved us, the ARPA funds, to be able to make these purchases and approve the agreement with Mr. Glass so that we could be in compliance with the Federal Relocation Act. I thought we were all on the same page. If we are now going, and I understand it's kind of shock value now that we're hearing dollars attached to this and what it may cost to relocate these families. But at this point, when you ask the question, Vice Mayor, what does this leave us with Mr. Glass? If each time we want to make a purchase that's going to have a family that's going to require relocation, if it's going to be a challenge for us to digest the costs associated with that, then we shouldn't be looking at properties that's going to require relocation, which would mean we would not need Mr. Glass's services. It would be a matter of us negotiating any purchases on our own, if there are any that don't require relocation. Unfortunately, where this project is located, all of them will have some relocation that's attached to it, because the majority of them are residential, with the exception of the church and one other building. But even with the church, there are some relocation requirements that we have to meet with that because it's a commercial property. So.
Thank you. And I'll rest here while I gather some more thoughts.
Mayor, can I jump in? So I think it's important to put everything in perspective here, right? And something to keep in mind. I know Mr. Bass has come and given what his idea is. Bottom line, for the city-owned properties, we do have to do a 163 notice. There's no escaping that whatsoever. In other words, we received the proposal, or we're thinking of disposing the property, and we want to let the public know, right? So there's no escaping that. So if you look right now at the map, and please pardon my drawing because it's on the fly here, the red area, we have those properties. Those are properties that are city-owned or were acquired from the county. Those are ours. The little reddish square is the quadplex we're purchasing. If we purchase that property, the blue triangle is what the project becomes now. Across the street, between 5th and 4th, we own those properties there. So we just expanded the footprint of the project. The whole triangle at the bottom, we own that property. We just expanded the project. So today, we can say, hey, we don't want to buy the property, let's talk about assigning, and I believe in 15 days, if we don't do this today, we lose it. But say we assign it to someone else. You're still going to have to put the 163 notice out, and what if that person doesn't get it? We just lost the opportunity to almost double the size of this project. I mean, it's there before your eyes. And once again, my apologies for the drawing. It's not that good. But you're basically doubling the footprint of this. Don't buy the property, that's fine. The footprint will be in the red area, and we can assign the property to someone else, but if in the end that someone else does not win the 163 notice, we just shot ourselves in the foot. We lost the opportunity to double this project.
If I may add before you, Matt, if I may add, last week we attended Revolution Conference, and we met with several developers and pitched this project to them. They were very interested. They're looking forward to an RFP or R163, if that's what we end up going with, to respond to. And we actually have meetings next week with a few others. So there are interest from developers that do the exact type of project that we want to put there, the mixed use, the mixed income. They have projects throughout either Dade County or throughout the U.S. They have the experience, and there were at least 6 of them. So we want to make sure that, if we have a 163 notice or RFP, we do already have some folk that are ready to respond to it as well.
And I just want to put on the table as well, we're going to be applying for all kinds of funding for this project. There is a transit component on the northwest corner, which we're talking FTA monies. So the last thing I would want to do is muddy up the waters that may mess up us getting some of that FTA waters. Once, the waters get tainted, the FTA says, oh, you got to go to the NEPA process, a whole bunch of processes. And doing this now, I don't know what impact that'll have of possible funding coming forward as well. But once again, keep in mind, we can assign the property to someone else, but we're literally cutting ourselves in half here if we do that.
Thank you. Board Member Roth, I think you wanted to chime in.
Thank you, Mayor, or Chairman. Thanks. The dollar amounts that we would be committing to for the relocation, would that come out of the city budget, or is that coming out of the monies we got from the ARPA? Anybody?
That is coming out of it could come out of the ARPA.
So there's no real expense to the city in any other form except for we can't use that money to acquire more property. We have to pay the expenses of those folks through that money to obtain this property. But it doesn't come out of the city budget in any way, right?
No,
I mean,
comes
doesn't
out of
cost
ARPA.
our citizens
An important
any
thing,
money.
Councilman Roth, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Something else to keep in mind. Carlos is already working to see for the relocation costs if we can use CDBG monies as well. And we've been having issues keeping up with our expenditures, and this would definitely fall in line if we can expend these monies for the relocation costs.
I'm not sure if I'm fine with doing that part of it because we can use those monies for other things. But if it's already part of the $6 million, because if we pay $600 for this one, the building to the north of that, we're looking at that one too. Is that correct?
That's correct. But that's the one that just sold a few months ago.
Right. But we have relocation issues there too.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Right. So that's where. But again, if it's not directly impacting the citizens of the city, and it's coming out of the federal money, it doesn't really. It's kind of like a wash to us. It doesn't matter. But we're acquiring these, and we're expanding a footprint as well. Is that the right understanding? I mean, yeah, it's trickle down taxpayer money, I get that, but it doesn't really affect that much when it comes to our residents, and we expand that footprint even more, so, I mean, I was thinking that it was going to really cost us some money when it came to our budget over the next 4 or 5 years, but in reality, I'm not sure there's a way to account for this money year after year after year, because we're not getting rid of it all at one time. And I don't know if there's time frames that we have to use that money up, but that's for you guys to keep track of, to keep us in compliance so we can get more money later down the line. But so I'm glad we're having a conversation, because now I understand it more, because I was like freaking out, like the mayor was. I mean, hey, well, this is going to cost us a lot of money, but I mean, the more you look at it, and then when you add in, and maybe you can explain that a little bit more about those county-owned properties in the red that have been deeded to us, that we really can't do anything to those. We can't convey them to anybody else. We can't sell them. We can't market them. We have to hold on to them, similar to what the City Hall property in a long-term lease, so that we never convey ownership to anybody else except for the city controls the properties.
And Councilman, those county-owned properties that we have are on a timeline. We have to build on them by,
Sorry, the project needs to be completed by 2025. So we're,
and I understand, not having an appetite. Look, the last thing we want to do is displace families, right? That's the last thing we want to do. But using Mr. Glass here and his company, this is what, you do this for the county as well, right?
County and the state, yes.
Not FPNL,
DOT.
Florida Turnpike, FDOT, so they know what they're doing. But, and look, I would hate to be one of those families, right? Then all of a sudden, you knock on my door and this is happening. But we kind of need to look at the bigger picture here as well. What would a project like this do for the Southwest neighborhood? Mixed use, it's our project. We control the density. We control the height. We control the retail and the commercial. It's ours. Destiny is in our hands, right? We have the full control, right? It's a quadplex. Private companies come out, buy these every day and knock them down to build, a $2 million house or something. So the good thing here is we're not throwing people out on the street. We're probably going to put them in better living conditions than they are in right now. And that's casting no aspersions to the current property owner or anything like that. But we're probably going to make their lives better in a way, living in a better, clean, livable housing, maybe even in a nicer neighborhood. And in turn, we're going to affect the lives of tens of thousands of people for the better. So I know there's a scale there and it's difficult, but hey, we do this one, we see how it works, but if, then the appetite is like, Jerry, we never want to do relocating again. There's the other 2 properties for somebody to come and buy and do it on their own, and then they can come knock on our door and see what they want to do. But right now, that little quadplex means doubling this project, the size of this project, to make the community better for everyone. Just want to put that out there.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Board Member Avila, and then Board Member Bailey.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm looking for a win-win situation, okay? There's no doubt in my mind that everybody up here wants to see this area improved and that we have a similar vision as to what we want to see there with the CRA. But I'm not going to ignore the opportunity to work with a local developer who already owns, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Mr. Bass, are you here representing also the property owners to the north of this subject property? Yeah. No? So the 4 square contract for units, they don't own 2F and E? Okay.
He needs to come up to the mic.
Yeah, well, what I'd like to do is I'd like to hear how this map now, how it relates to what we're looking at here and what the proffer is Because you're here, you've passed out documentation. I know that there has been communication, at least with the CRA and your team. So I'd like to know what it is you want us to consider before we make decisions, because this is on the table for us to decide tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Record there, Jason Bass. I'm here representing Foursquare Community Development, 8899 Northwest 18th Terrace in Doral. We had this vision some months ago, and we made some inquiries as to the availability and the possibility of acquiring or working any kind of negotiation, any kind of deal we could work with the city on the properties down in the southwest section. And we were told that those lots, they weren't on the table. And then we inquired a little bit more with staff and council and everything, and it wasn't on anybody's radar that there was a deal on the table for those lots. So we kept moving forward with our vision, and our vision was to do an assemblage of a lot of the properties that are under here. Looks very similar to what's up there. We actually have, if you guys would like on the board, sorry about the crude presentation. This was like last minute. I had no idea that the city was getting ready to purchase this property. It's actually one of the properties that we had identified that we were actively pursuing, and now we know why there hasn't been much response from the owners, because the city was engaged with them. But if you look right to the west of the blue lines, could he possibly put that up on the screen? I don't know. I have one, but there's one, okay, all right, because there's one that I have to go up there. So B on the map that you guys have, we currently have that under contract to purchase. We have that under contract. C, we have that under contract. And now A and D, A is the subject property that the city is discussing tonight. And then D, we're engaged, we're trying to acquire D as well. So we had a very similar idea to what the city's idea is, eerily. Great minds think alike, but we were going to do a little bit bigger of a project. We kind of had a grander plan. So if you see the triangle that we have there, one, that's not identifying that. That's just actually identifying everything that's in that red line, which is, A, B, C, and D, and the triangle. So once we do that assemblage there, we'd be right at about 3.5 acres in that triangle. So then 2, it's not 2F, I'm sorry, again, this was very rushed. So 2 would be the properties E and F, which we would also, we spoke with the realtor, obviously, on F, which is the 22 unit, larger complex to the north of the one that you guys are talking. It was under contract. When we approached them, they were gonna get back to us if the contract fell through. It didn't fall through. It closed about a month ago, maybe, and for $2.45 million for that. So that kind of stung a little bit. And we haven't gone after E. We sent everybody letters of intent. But we are willing to purchase private money, our funds. We're not looking for a city contribution from the city as far as finances, CRA monies, any monies at all. This is all privately purchased from us, and that would add another 15,000 something, square feet to that side of the project. And then the other stuff were ancillary up there that we have marked for 3. We were looking at y'all's plans. We didn't think that it would be possible to close off 4th Street. I don't know that works, but so 3 would be a standalone project, mixed use. 6 down 4th Street, So it's like, it's, more of a larger revitalization of 4th Street. 6 down to the west a little bit would be a mixed-use project, also commercial downstairs, residential above. 5 would just be residential, because we're not fronting any major roadways there. But this is our idea, and this is what we've been working towards. I wish that we had had a better response, I guess, from the other departments, and we would have been involved in this from day one. We're not here to interfere with what's going on, although we do think we have a better vision. I think we have a better project laid out. We would definitely alleviate some of the city's burdens that they'd be bearing, the relocation of any tenants. And just to point out quickly, in Building A, which is the Christie property that the city, that the property that's in question tonight. So that's 4 units. And then B, that we have under contract is 4. I think C is 4, D is 4. And F there, the one to the north of this project, is 22. So you'd wind up with 38 units. If what we would wind up with, if we wound up with that big project, or the 22 unit property, 38 units. So the city could potentially, if you wanted to do something on the scale that we're doing, you would then be responsible for obviously purchasing all those properties, and then the relocation of 38 families at a minimum. And then also, in the meantime, I don't know how it works. I haven't drilled down into how you guys would go about being the landlords for those 38 units in the meantime, because now then the city would be getting into the business of being landlords for some residential properties.
Mr. Bass, to clarify, you currently are working towards purchasing the properties identified as 3, 4, 5, and 6. You don't currently have ownership.
Those are CRA properties. Those are properties that we wanted to
You wanted
do
to work
projects on
towards.
also with the city, yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, is there a possibility here to, I see the value in the private sector handling the relocation issues. I'm thinking the costs are way more than we're willing to risk in this part of the process. Can we amend number 7 of the addendum to adjust for the possibility for an assignment where the buyer will follow all federal relocation requirements in relocating the tenants with the exception of an assignment? So we can exclude the assignment option?
Well, my thought was, to answer you, my thought was that implicitly in our obligations due to federal law, if we closed it, there's no question that we are responsible. Okay, with or without that provision in, I think, 7, you said?
Yes, so if
Okay.
item 7 wasn't even there,
We still have that obligation. And my question to Mr. Glass was that if we assigned this contract to a private entity, does the fact that it passed through our hands as a fully executed contract bind the private entity to relocation? I think that provision needs to be stricken. We're obligated, and then we can. Is that correct, Mr. Glass? You really weren't certain as to that aspect of it?
What I can tell you is once you spend $1 federal dollar, your project is federalized. If you don't spend any federal dollars, it is not federalized.
So I guess that would even include posting a deposit under the contract,
Correct. You use
Okay,
$1
so-
federal dollar and it's fed.
even though it's not necessarily spent, just the posting of the federal dollar is the escrow deposit?
Absolutely. It's an expenditure.
Wow. Okay, so that,
well, how can we potentially secure the contract and explore ways to realize the vision of the project, including working with this local developer. Because I do think that there's a way to realize some real savings in the project. And if they are in fact, really working towards this broader vision, I think it would behoove us to want to work together and make sure that our visions are compatible. So I see this as an opportunity, not necessarily a challenge or an interference, but let's kind of look at the bigger picture here and see how we can work together. Could we secure the contract and during a due diligence phase, during our inspection period, have these, simultaneous conversations and maybe use funds from a different pot of money so that we're not triggering any federal, caveats here. So just kind of explore those ideas.
I just want to interject for a moment, make a couple of quick points. Number one, with respect to the lots that we have, you have to do a public solicitation. It's statutorily required. You have to do a public solicitation. So there's not going to be a contract, a deal that's struck without us going out for that and soliciting from all proposers. We have to make public notice in the paper. It's got to circulate for 30 days. That has to happen. And number two, in addition to the acquisition piece with the federal funds, I know, and Kamisha can speak to this, there are applications for other federal funds to be contributed to the project, which would federalize it no matter whether you acquired it, used the ARPA funds now, or you received FTA funds later, which is why staff initially wanted to engage Mr. Glass, was to preserve their ability to seek out federal funds to assist with the project. So avoiding it now doesn't necessarily mean you're avoiding it later. And in fact, and Mr. Glass may be able to speak to this, once you've acquired these properties and then you go and federalize it later, I don't know if you can use it for certain parts of the development. You might have to carve those things out. So I mean, he can speak to that, but the reason that Mr. Glass was engaged originally was to preserve the CRA's ability to use federal funds, and not just from an ARPA perspective, but from other funds as well.
Board Member Bailey, followed by Fletcher.
Thank you, Chairman. All right, let me see if I can gather a few of these 1,000 things going on in my head. First of all, the whole point of this entire item is it is within a CRA district. So this is a fourplex of 2 bedrooms, and I wish we had the minutes to when we first had you up here asking all the questions about relocation, because this is the last place, I hope, if any, we ever consider not relocating somebody. I still remember very vividly our issues with Homestead Gardens, how passionate we were about making sure that nobody was left or living where they shouldn't be. So I did not see this as coming up as an issue, that this was a fourplex. That 22 one, sure. That one I was a little weary if we were able to acquire that land. And as far as us being landlords and planning, like we're doing in other properties in the city, although I enjoy the architecture side of it and putting in my 2 cents, it is not what we should be up here doing. But we're not buying all of this property. We already have a lot of skin in the game, and this small piece is really going to finalize that. I appreciate your vision. I'm sorry that we weren't able to talk about it more. But I don't see how this could fit in to the triangle vision, which I have been a fan of since I first heard it. I think that it is the gateway to the Southwest. I think that we have so much potential having all these main areas now by Homestead Live, of course, 4th Street, to give up that piece because of the county acquired land especially. If this one little piece helps build a bigger project, then I really think that we should consider it. I do agree with everything that's been said as far as not having, not taking on so much as far as the design and the vision. I do think we should leave that to the private sector. but these 4 two-bedrooms, and I'm sure, I mean, if you've done any, Mr. Glass, if you've done any of these relocations in the Southwest, it's guaranteed not going to be an even 4 for 2 bedrooms. I can guarantee you that. But I do think that it does add to a beautiful, bigger picture, and that it will be worth what it costs. Thank you.
If I can make, I'm sorry.
And I just want to say, Mr. Glass, I don't know if you recall, you're a former Homestead resident. You're not? You're very familiar with this community, so it's in his heart.
But I wanted to address one thing as far as the CRA becoming a landlord. Part of the relocation advisory services, which is the major part of the federal program, it's to move people out as soon as possible to decent, safe, and sanitary units as soon as possible to get their lives normalized, that they're not in the middle of, I have to move. So you're not going to be landlords long, because then we wouldn't be doing our job.
And I just want to speak to one more point that Councilwoman Avila raised, which is, wanting to share the vision. This, moving forward on this parcel doesn't preclude that, because when ultimately we are going out to bid. And so I think whatever form that solicitation takes, it's going to outline the restrictions that are in place on the property so that any interested parties understand what they're undertaking. And there is certainly nothing that would preclude. I mean, he's further along than everybody else who is at the process, because he's been vetting this area for several months, it appears. So he would almost seem to be in a sort of an advantageous position when it comes to submitting those responses, because he's further along the line in his due diligence, I think, than many others would be at this point.
And Matt touched on one of the things I was going to as well. Mr. Bass is more than welcome to be part of the 163 and RFP process, right? It's not he's being excluded or anything like that. Though we got to keep in mind, if we assign him that property and he doesn't win the 163, then our hands are tied as well. So something to keep in mind.
Mr. Bass.
It seems to be a bit more complicated and intricate than, and I appreciate, the statutes and everything that this has to go out to public bid, RFPs. And, our vision for this property, for this project is very similar, in line. Mixed use, a great project right there, like you said, Councilwoman, the gateway to the southwest, and 4th Street, historic 4th Street. And we, especially I, want what's best for the city and don't want to stand in the way and cause any, hang-ups or problems with everything moving forward. We do look forward to coming in and, giving you guys a proposal on this project, however it turns out. It could be a little bit bigger, and if you guys, would like us to share our thoughts and our ideas and our vision, and maybe there's some ideas that you might like to look at and incorporate into the rest of it moving forward. But, I agree with the manager, and if we wind up with a couple of pieces of the puzzle, all it's going to really do is hinder the entire puzzle from coming together, and that's not our intent. And I think that's it. That's all I have to say. I think we're kind of withdrawing what we had for some obvious reasons, but we appreciate the consideration, and we'll help out however we can moving forward. Good luck, and thank you. I think that's it.
We can connect your puzzle pieces with ours, or somebody's puzzle pieces together.
Yeah, just to close, I didn't want that in any way to not say that your vision wasn't there. And you know that I have been waiting many, many years for people to be interested in the Southwest. So
Oh, no, I didn't take it that way.
please keep all these ideas coming. If it wasn't for that one little piece to tie into the county pieces, I think that it would be a completely different discussion.
Right.
Thank you.
Our thing is, what if we don't win that bid? Then we have to revisit, what we're buying. So thanks.
Board Member Fletcher.
Thank you. And just for clarification, I did hear the manager say that if we don't take action tonight, there's a potential that we will lose
Kamisha, we have how many days
Lose the
to-
opportunity
to
for this
execute
piece of
the
property.
agreement?
15.
15 days.
15 days. So the problem I have with that, I'll just say this once, is why put us on a timeline? There's got to be a little more forethought in the future when we come up with ideas like this, so we're not stuck at the last minute trying to make a decision. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not talking for the others. In the 163 notice, this is a question for the attorney. Is it possible for us to add to the notice that we could assign the relocation expenses to whoever wins the 163 bid to public-private partnership, where they would get those expenses rather than the city?
So I think Mr. Glass would tell you that it's going to be the city's obligation. Could we, under an agreement, have them contribute additional funds for that? I can't see why we could not require that of them. And we were actually just having a conversation this morning with staff about what such a procurement would look like. You have a statutory requirement, which is minimal and has led to, some open discussion. Being a bit more specific in this instance, particularly about the restrictions that are going to be attached to the properties, there are more limitations on what can be developed. And so we were going to flush that out. If that was something that the board wanted to see, a contribution, I think we'll have to work on the timing because I don't know how long it'll take Mr. Glass to come up with the final number to include that in the notice. So,
I just think we're doing it in other areas.
I think, yes, we can look at passing that through in some form or fashion. I don't think we've pinned down, exactly what the procurement would look like yet. We were speaking with the consultants this morning.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry? Yes.
Thank you. Just one more comment, or maybe a couple more comments. But Mr. Bass, don't give up the dream, all right? Because the puzzle is not completed yet, right? So I think what we learned tonight is we can't convey ownership. So when you put together a plan, and anybody who wants to put together a plan, they're going to have to incorporate the fact that they're not going to be able to purchase these properties from us. They're going to have to be, well, this one maybe you can, but the other ones they can't. The county properties cannot be. So there's going to be a lease or some sort of lease component to the project at the end of the day. And the more you purchase outside of our triangle, the bigger it expands, right? So it becomes a bigger project. So B and C and D, which are not in our plan now, if you can acquire those properties, that just expands that footprint even larger, which is, I think, something we could all agree on that we would like to see. Just some food for thought there on that particular item, and I think that's all I've got.
Thank you, Board Member Roth.
Since we've heard all of the pros and cons, I'm going to make a motion to move forward with this contract.
It's been moved and seconded. Real quick, couple of questions from the chair. I guess, well, just a comment. This is the first time I've really expressly heard that we do not have the authority to convey fee title to these properties. It was always of the understanding that they came with a lot of strings attached. But this is the first time hearing that in order for a private developer to do a deal with us, this has got to be a long-term ground lease situation. So if nothing else came out of this conversation tonight, that's big, because I know how we're struggling with the value of ground leases. How will they be paid? What will be the amount of any capitalized? And we're going to be faced with that again with this project. So I guess, as part of that checklist for this CRA discussion we're going to have someday, what are the nature and extent of the strings that are attached to the other properties held in the CRA? You know, I mean, clearly, the 4 lots we're doing a deal with Minority Builders Coalition with have the ability to outright convey. And I understand there are a lot of different sources, but I'd really like to have a handle before it comes before us as to what's going to be subject to a long-term ground lease in the future and what we have the authority to actually convey. That is a huge piece of information to have.
Yes, Mayor, and we're preparing to do that CRA workshop. But, you know, just keep in mind, we had a workshop last week.
Yeah.
We're having a workshop now on the 8th.
Special
So a lot of
call on
stuff
the
is
8th,
queuing
yeah.
up. But, and my apologies, Councilman, I thought, you know, that we had prepared you all. I know we had done the separate presentations to you all, and we figured you're fairly familiar with this project, so we didn't anticipate a 15-day contract expiring would be an issue. But that's my fault, okay? Take responsibility
Well,
for that.
as I read it, it has to be approved and executed by all parties by the 15th of this month, followed
so we
by
got
a
a week.
15-day inspection period and a closing
Yeah.
30 days thereafter. But, and I just want to be real clear. I'm not advocating putting anybody out on the street. I'm questioning the propriety of spending potentially $600,000 to relocate the occupants of 4 units. That's my concern, and we need to have a better handle on those numbers going forward for other proposed transactions. And understand, you know, business and churches, we're going to have that same issue. You know, it's almost like we need to do some better due diligence to the extent we can before these contracts land on this table.
Understood, Mayor. And to Mr. Glass's point earlier, you know, there's only so much we can do at this point because of federal law. But this is our first one with a tremendous impact to the community. So, and like I said, there might not be appetite to do this later, but obviously whatever it turns out to be, you all will be noticed, right? Well, I'll keep you abreast of what the costs are. And so at least you'll know what the end result was, whether it's 600,000 or it was 300,000, at least we'll have a number and you will know. And then, you know, we could plan accordingly for any future acquisitions as well.
Okay, appreciate that. Yes,
Just one-
Board Member Roth.
Just one more comment. I mean, when you start thinking about the federal impacts that we have to convey out, it will affect the ultimate monies that the city receives. Because if we've got $600,000 that we're asking somebody to absorb on our behalf, is going to take out the some of the margins we're going to end up earning through leases or sales or whatever the combination would be. So, I mean, this is not to think about this right this second. There's a motion in a second. But the thought process is this is a very complicated process. We're going to go through an exercise together, staff, city, the manager, Mr. Glass, teacher. We're going to do this together as an exercise and see where it ends up. But ultimately, like the City Hall property, it's got to be what's best for the city and the residents, right? At the end of the day. And I think we can come up to that conclusion, but there's going to be a lot of things that we have to go through and understand and accept and say, you know what, we may pay a little extra for this piece of land. It may cost CRA a little extra money, but it's the investment that we're making into the city now. Most of those properties sit vacant with no property taxes being collected on it. So there's a lot of things to think about in the future, but we have to be strong enough to make the right decisions for the entire city. So with that, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. One last question for you, Mr. Glass. When considering the relocation in different areas, how do all of the residents in that unit have to be on a lease? What if somebody's staying there that month? How do you calculate that?
It's preferred to be on a lease, but if they're not, we'll get an affidavit from the property owner as to the rent amount being paid.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we've got a public comment, but Board Member Avila.
Okay, and then is our agreement with Mr. Glass contingent on just this subject property, or is it the entire phasing of this project?
This agreement is for phase one of it, so it was to acquire to look into trying to purchase, I think it's 4 of the properties that are over in that area.
Okay, so then this exercise will be coming back again with Mr. Glass, and then I wanted to just say thank you to the CRA director and to staff, because you were able to answer very tough questions, and this particular property is pivotal, and there's no doubt about that. So, thank you for being patient with us through this process.
If I may make 2 quick comments. In the future, we'll be aware of when that date of acceptance needs to be, and we'll broaden that time frame a bit more for the board to be able to hear the matter. And also, with relocation, we do always ask the property owner if we can talk to the tenants at the time that we're negotiating. This particular property owner said, no way. So in the future, we'll still ask those questions. So I'm hoping in the future with a yes from a property owner, we can do those preliminary calculations, and perhaps I can bring better answers than we don't know who's there. But we'll work towards that.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to open the floor for public comment on this item. Mr. Bass, real quick.
Would you guys like us to assign you our contracts?
Mayor, I had thought about that myself. The one to the west of the property. The B, number B.
It's
Mayor, we could talk to Mr. Bass.
Yeah, we'd have to see the contracts, and they'll bring it back to us. Have to see where you are in your due diligence and time frame for closing, but that, on its surface, seems to be a very appealing alternative. Absolutely. All right, thanks. So let's open it up for public comment. Other public comment? No public comment. We'll close the public hearing. Let's have a roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Board Member Fletcher?
Yes.
Board Member Ross?
Yes.
Board Member Avila? Yes. Board Member Bailey? Vice Chairman Guzman?
Yes.
Chairman Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
All right. Let's see. I think that concludes the business of the CRA. Anything further, Madam Director?
No, sir, Mr. Chair.
Anything further, Mr. Attorney? Mr. Manager? Entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor? All right, we will convene the Committee of the Whole in just a moment. For those of you who are betting on a 6:45 ending tonight, you lose. All right, good evening. Let's call the City of Homestead Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, November 8th. It is now 7:03 p.m. The polls are closed on the East Coast. And roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Fletcher?
Here.
Councilwoman Bailey? Here. Councilman Ross? Here. Councilwoman Avila? Here. Vice Mayor Guzman? Mayor Lawson?
Here. All right, Mr. Manager, are there any additions, deletions, or deferrals?
No, Mayor, we have none.
All right, we have next tab 1, the approval of the October 11th, 2022 Committee of the Whole minutes. It's been moved by Councilwoman Bailey, seconded by Councilman Fletcher for approval. All in favor? Any opposed? Next item is motion to place car number 3719 on the council agenda, Spanish video and broadcast services. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. At the August 17th, 2022 council meeting, Mayor and council directed staff to explore expanding its existing Inside Homestead News programming to include a Spanish language version, as well as to increase Spanish language programming through all of the city's outreach. Subsequently, staff worked with Paget Productions, LLC, to receive a price proposal to add 11 productions annually in Spanish, bringing the total number of annual productions to 31. The total base compensation for these additional services will increase from $50,000 to $75,000 annually. Additionally, in an effort to create additional multilingual content, the maximum amount of discretionary production services was increased from $20,000 to $35,000 for total annual compensation not to exceed $110,000. Staff recommends the mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with Paget Productions LLC for video productions in an amount not to exceed $110,000 annually. This is a one-year agreement with the option to extend for additional one-year periods upon the same terms, conditions, and mutual written consent of both parties.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Councilwoman Bailey.
Thank you, Mayor. So as far as the social media videos are concerned, how was that text translated before into Spanish? How did that work?
So previously, and how we'll continue to work with translating the scripts is we had a translation service that the city works with. So we'll continue using that same translation service to translate the scripts from English to Spanish, but now they'll just be actually performed in red instead of appearing as only the captions.
So there is a fee associated with having it written in another language under the video. And I'm trying to get to, now that we're offering a full Spanish in audio, could we offer Haitian Creole in text?
Yes, we could do that.
For an additional fee?
It would require an additional fee, but that would be outside of the Paget Productions contract. That's with the translation service, which is separate.
I would love to see how much that would be. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Fletcher.
So what were those closed captioning costs prior to this?
So it's on we get charged on a per word basis. For the typical script, it was around $200 to $300, depending on the length and the complication of the script. So I imagine it would be about the same for Haitian Creole.
So that's just a note to us for brevity. Less words in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. But just to be clear, this contract includes Spanish language talent.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Good. Councilman Roth, did you? Oh, okay. I thought you were waving in.
Muévelo.
Pardon?
Muévelo.
Move it. All right, so we'll open the public hearing. Any public comments on this item? We'll close the public hearing. Moved by Councilwoman Bailey, seconded by Councilwoman Avila. All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Next item is tab 3. Motion to place car number 3686 on the council agenda. Lease financing for 3 solid waste trucks. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. This award is for the purchase of 3 trucks that are part of the city's capital improvement plan that were approved for purchase at the April 27th, 2022 council meeting. At that time, we advised council that due to the lead times needed between ordering and delivering, it was determined to approve the purchase in April of 2022 and bring it back to financing closer to the expected delivery of the trucks. The city has been advised that delivery of the trucks are expected in November 2020 or possibly December. Staff recommends the mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a master lease agreement with the Truist Equipment Finance Corp. And to finance the purchase of 3 solid waste trucks. We got a very competitive interest rate on this, which is 4.32, and it's an 8-year term.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any questions or comments from council? Okay. Any public comment on this item? Mr. Kraft, we'll get you a microphone. And a 2-minute timer. Brevity.
No, I just want to ask, we also have that deal with the electrical garbage truck, so that means we will be getting 4 in total, right?
Mr. Kraft, there's no deal for an electric truck at this point. We are researching it, though. The issue is one electric truck costs the same as 3 solid waste trucks. It would be $1 million for one vehicle. But we are researching it.
But wasn't there something about that we was in some kind of collaboration or negotiation with MAC about it? Because that's what I've understood on Martinez.
Mr. Kraft, we're researching it, and so that will make the determination if we do a joint use for the truck or not. So that's currently where we're at.
Because what I'm thinking is the world is going electric. Even the U.S. Army has incorporated that, and they're doing it step by step. So I don't see why we should buy too many diesel trucks, because most likely by 25 or 26, they might be outsourced. And there's no plan from MAC to do any more after 25. That was all.
Thank you. All right, no further questions from council. I think we have a motion. Do we have a motion? Moved by Councilman Ross, seconded by Councilman Fletcher. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, next item, tab 4. Motion to place car number 3696 on the council agenda, the Hooper Corporation change order request. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. On August 21st, 2019, council authorized the award of ITP 2019-29 below and above grade construction packages for the Renaissance substation to Hooper Corporation for a total of $432,500. Due to differing interpretations of the bid language, there were items that Hooper deemed to be outside the scope of work that needed to be completed in order for the transformer to be placed fully in service. The requests for additional payments have been thoroughly vetted and vetted by staff, and staff is in agreement with the change order. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council authorize the city manager to approve and accept a $63,000 change order request from Hooper Corporation for additional improvements to the Renaissance Electrical Substation. This project is part of the city's capital improvement plan, CIP 0823.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Councilman Roth?
Thank you. These are things that I definitely don't like. You give us a price, you say you can do the job, and then you whack us for another $63,000. I just put that on the record. These are the situations we have to avoid. You can't have somebody come to you and say, oh, I misunderstood what you were asking me. It's going to cost you 20% more. Just doesn't make any sense. I took the words right out of Councilman Fletcher's mouth. No, that's all, Mayor. Thank you.
I've got a ditto from Councilman Fletcher.
And,
All right.
Mayor, if I can interject, even though with the $63,000 increase, it's still less than the second highest bidder that had come in for that particular project. And they were asking for substantially more, and between legal and staff, we hammered them down pretty good. And we're okay with the price.
Thank you. Any public comment? Close the public hearing and ask for a motion to approve. Moved by Councilman Fletcher, second by Councilwoman Bailey. All in favor? Any opposed? Next item is motion to place car number 3706 on the council agenda, the citywide perimeter intrusion detection system upgrade and annual maintenance. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, and please bear with me. This one's going to be a little bit of a long one here, all right? The city has been using the solar beam perimeter intrusion detection system since 2005 to secure critical facilities and infrastructure citywide. The current equipment has exceeded its current life cycle and becoming increasingly difficult to find replacement parts in order to keep the system operating properly. This upgrade would replace the antiquated internal components as well as improve the current system overall by enhancing the monitoring of the towers, proper function, and reducing false alarms. Oresco Technologies, Inc. will guarantee to keep the same maintenance costs fixed for $25,200 a year for the next 2 years to ensure system integrity and awareness at no additional cost to the city. There is an option to renew for 5 additional annual terms based on mutual agreement between the city and the contractor. Annual renewals will be limited to a maximum of 10% price increase by location whereby the city has the right to accept, reject, or negotiate any rate changes. In addition, Oresco Technologies, Inc. is being considered a sole source vendor as they hold existing patents on the technology. Therefore, an independent study was ordered and conducted by EAC Consulting, Inc., who are experts in the field of intrusion detection systems and have provided their report on the existing equipment, confirming the necessary upgrade and budget. Because of the existing infrastructure, the report revealed it would be costly to completely replace the system at a preliminary budget cost estimate of $1.3 million. The proposal received by Oresco Technologies, Inc. for the system upgrade is in line with the results of the report, which was estimated at $200,000. Now, due to the sensitive nature of the information contained in the upgrade proposals and the independent study of the existing system for the city solar beam perimeter security system, these items were not attached to the council agenda report. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Oresco Technologies, Inc. for the upgrade, $137,057, and the maintenance, $25,200 of the city solar beam perimeter intrusion detection system for a total of $162,257. This is a 2-year maintenance agreement with the option to extend for 5 additional 1-year periods upon the same terms, conditions, and mutual written consent of both parties. Years 3 through 7 may be subject to a rate increase of no more than 10% a year.
Thank you.
I'm done.
You're done. Council, any questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Fletcher.
Guys, quickly, I believe this is a very good price in this arena. I've dealt with these types of issues for years. I would like to ask if I could get the data, how much did EAC Consulting cost the city to get this work done? Because really all it takes is somebody in procurement picking up the phone and calling a couple of different vendors and saying we want to replace some infrared head zones, and therefore you're not having to pay for it.
I just asked the procurement director, and she believes it was $27,000 to do the study, and that was city facility-wide.
Yeah, I think a couple of telephone calls done by somebody from the city would have sufficed, and we would have saved ourselves $27,000.
I'll take you up for next time.
If it's hot, too hard, too heavy, we need to start thinking more internal. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Councilman. Anybody on my right? All right, I'll open the public hearing. Mr. Kraft. We get him a microphone. Hold on. We can't interpret you if we can't hear you.
No, I said I'm going to do it short. I'm just going to want to ask if the system that's being put in, would that be proprietary? So that means that we cannot do anything about it in the future because we are committed to those guys who have the patents?
Mr. Kraft, that's why we did a study. If the system wasn't working for us, we would have gone for a full-blown solicitation. Obviously, you have to weigh the cost, right? $1.3 million or less than $200,000. I think the decision was easy to make at this point.
Okay.
That it? Thank you. I just want to recognize that the representatives from the proposer have endured the prior 2 meetings. If there's anything to add, please come forward. I think the man, that's fine. I just wanted to recognize that you were here and the manager has given us a report. Okay. All right, we'll close the public hearing then and ask for a motion to approve. Moved by Councilwoman Avila, seconded by Councilman Fletcher. All in favor? Any opposed? Very good. Next item is tab 6. Motion to place car number 3698 on the council agenda. A capital improvement project number 2344, the new net app. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This purchase is for a backup data storage array that will serve as a failover for the police department main data storage array in the event of a man-made or natural disaster. Staff recommends the mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to purchase a new net app for the Homestead Police Department from CDWG in the amount of $161,374.01. This purchase is in accordance with the State of Florida Contract 432-11500 WSCA 15 ACS. This project is part of the city's capital improvement plan.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council? Okay, any public comment? Close the public hearing. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Councilman Fletcher, seconded by Councilwoman Avila to place this item on the council agenda. All in favor? Any opposed? Next item, tab 7, motion to place car number 3620 on the council agenda. Leak detection services. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. The City of Homestead is required to submit a water conservation plan to the South Florida Water Management District to accompany its annual unaccounted for distribution losses report. The South Florida Water Management District Permit 1300046W was modified in May 2022, authorizing an increased allocation of groundwater for the from the Biscayne Aquifer for public water supply use from 10.55 million gallons per day to 16.28 million gallons per day. This is an incremental increase that has performance-based contingency. One contingency is to submit a formal leak detection program. The Astera Recover Service is part 1 of the leak detection program that will identify leaks throughout the city water distribution system, allowing city crews to repair unseen water leaks under the surface. Staff recommends that mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Utilis Inc., DBA Astera, for leak detection services citywide for $49,900. This agreement provides an option to renew for an additional 1-year period upon the same terms, conditions, and mutual written consent of both parties.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council? All right, any public comment? I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion to approve. Moved by Councilwoman Avila, seconded by Councilman Fletcher. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Next item. Motion to place car number 3673 on the council agenda, ITB number 2022-18, citywide drainage improvements. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this award is for the drainage improvement of 10 different locations throughout the city which are prone to flooding. Percolation tests were conducted at the sites, and Durham has approved the new improvements. Staff recommends that mayor and council authorize the city manager to award ITB 2022-18 to the Redland Company, Inc. for citywide drainage improvements for a total of $364,724.57. This authorization will also allow the manager to accept a price increase of up to 10% for any unforeseen conditions. This project is part of the city's capital improvement plan, CIP 0104.
Thank you. Council, questions, comments? Okay, I'll open the public hearing. Close the public hearing. Motion to place this item on the council agenda? Moved by Councilman Fletcher, seconded by Councilwoman Avila. All in favor? Any opposed? Next item, tab 9, motion to place car number 3701 on the council agenda, Pump Station 22 upgrades and force main upgrades. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. In August of 2022, the Department of Environmental Resource Management placed the city's Pump Station 22, located at 801 East Maury Drive, under moratorium due to Pump Station 22 reporting 11.14 hours per day of operation, which is in excess of the maximum allowable limit of 10 hours per day. As a result of the moratorium status, Durham will not issue new allocations which increase previously allocated flows. Increasing of allocations usually result from new construction or change in use of existing properties, from lower demand classifications to higher ones, such as from retail store to a restaurant, The purpose of this award is for Hazen and Sawyer to provide design, bid documents, and engineering services during the construction of the proposed pump station 22 and force main upgrades. Staff recommends that mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Hazen and Sawyer for professional engineering services pursuant to RFQ 2013-01, professional architectural and engineering service for pump station 22 and force main upgrades for a total of $306,060.
Thank you. Any initial questions or comments from council? I'll open the public hearing. I'll close the public hearing. Do we have a motion to place this item on the council agenda?
Second with a
Moved by
question.
Councilwoman Bailey, seconded by Councilman Fletcher. All in favor? Any
Question?
opposed? Yeah,
I'm
okay.
sorry. So in regards to this particular item, and I know we're going to have some other ones coming up in the future, particularly water-related, I know in the legislative packet, we've identified roughly $15 million worth of items that we need to try and prioritize in order to get our system up to our standards. So let's keep the eye on the ball for everyone if we're looking out for those federal funds that are available, and let's make sure that we put our lobbyists on notice to look for those as well.
And that's a great point, Councilman. We've already been talking to the lobbyists. If I'm not mistaken, the legislative packet is actually coming to next week's meeting for your review and any comments you may have. Okay?
Thank you. Moving right along. Tab 10, motion to place car number 3702 on the council agenda. ITB number 2022-31, water and wastewater treatment chemicals. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. The City of Homestead operates the water and wastewater treatment facility through its Public Works and Engineering Department. The city follows all federal, state, and local regulations for the operation of the water and wastewater treatment facilities, which includes the use of certain chemicals needed for treatment. The award of this bid will allow the city to comply with its operational treatment requirements. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council authorize the city manager to award bid 2022-31 water and wastewater treatment chemicals in accordance with the bid prices listed on the attached tabulation to Allied Universal Corp. For elemental chlorine Group 1 and for Polydine Inc. for cationic emulsion polymer Group 3 for the Public Works and Engineering Department on an as-needed basis and within the established department budget. The initial term of these awards runs through September 30th, 2023, with the option to extend 4 additional one-year periods upon the same terms, conditions, and mutual written consent of both parties.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council? We'll open the public hearing. Public hearing is now closed. We have a motion to put this on the council agenda. Moved by Councilwoman Avila, seconded by Councilwoman Bailey. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, next item, tab 11, motion to place car number 3681 on the council agenda, grant for a wastewater master plan. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'd like to report that this is the last item of the night. Okay. So the city has applied and received a watershed planning grant under the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program from the Florida Division of Emergency Management in the amount of $161,056.50 to fund the city's watershed master plan. The city will provide matching funds of $53,685.50 for a total project cost of $214,742. The purpose of this master plan is to provide an outline to reduce local flood risk and to act as a tool to make decisions that will reduce flooding from development on the watershed-wide basis. It's been a long night, I'm sorry. Staff recommends that Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement and establish a budget for a grant award from the Florida Division of Emergency Management in the amount of $161,056.50 for a watershed master plan. This grant requires $53,685.50 in matching funds.
Thank you. Any initial questions, council? I'll open the public hearing. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. We have a motion to place this on the council agenda. Moved by Councilman Fletcher, seconded by Councilwoman Avila. Where's Roth? Is he still down? Okay. Throw a second out every now and then. Yeah, okay. All right. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, okay. Anything further, Mr. Manager?
No, Mayor, I'm done for tonight.
It only seems late because it's been dark for 2.5 hours
That's
already.
true, that's true.
Mr. Pearl, motion to adjourn? Thank you all. Good night.